Hi everyone, this is Gina. Today we are going to make a really pretty sparkling bracelet. It's a tennis bracelet style, but the units are more rectangular. They have very nice movement. I'm going to show you what it looks like. I'm using the newest treasure bags, the warm and cool seasonal tones bags. And let's get you close here so you can see what this looks like, and I'll show you the other one too. But this is just really pretty. It has a lot of nice movement with the design. The beads stand up so that you can see them. These are such pretty cubes. I wanted to be able to have them shown, not sunken into the design, and I wanted them to be elevated somewhat. So if you can see from the side, they are somewhat elevated and they're really pretty. You can see the whole cube. And I'm going to take off this other one so you can see what it looks like. This is a very easy bracelet. It takes a little time simply because there's a lot of sewing in and out of these beads, but it's very simple, and it doesn't look so simple. It turns out so pretty. And then I wanted to show you what the backs look like. So the way that we're doing it, we get this nice streamlined base like this, and it turns out really pretty too. So it's just a really nice design, and I hope that you will join me. And so if you do, let's go ahead and look at what it takes to make this bracelet. And if you don't have the treasure bags, there are alternative beads you could use. This is a very basic stitch. Well, it's not basic, I created it. However, it should be very accommodating to whatever you want to use for your main bead. A regular cube, a round bead. We'll discuss it further in the video. But that's what these look like. Let's go ahead and see what it takes to make it. Okay, for this project today, we will be making the blue version of this bracelet. And this turns out really, really pretty. And I'm going to show you what we're going to use for both color options for the newest treasure bags. Of course, all we're going to need from the treasure bags are the cube beads and the toggle clasps. So in your treasure bags, you have these 4.5 by 5 millimeter faceted electroplated glass cubes. In the warm bag, you have a golden color. Some are a little lighter golden than this one. In the blue bag, you have this steel blue color. These can be substituted with any other cubes you might have. You can use a 4.5 millimeter, even maybe a 4 millimeter, and a 5 or a 6 millimeter cube should probably work. May need to do a little bit of adjusting. If you use a small one, you'll use 11/0 to anchor the beads on instead of a 15/0. If you use a bigger bead, it should be fine. But stay within the 4 to 6 millimeter range. Then we are going to be using some Toho Seed beads. So in the warm bag, I'm using 2 colors of 15/0s. I used the antique bronze to attach my cubes, and then I used galvanized permanent finish Starlight for my embellishment on the outside. Now, in the blue bag, I'm just going to use one 15/0 color, and this is hematite. I'm going to attach the beads and do my embellishment on the outside with the 15/0 in this color, hematite. Then you're going to need 11/0 seed beads for the bronze bag, or for the warm bag, I am using antique bronze, and in the cool bag, I'm using galvanized permanent finish aluminum. We're going to be using 8/0s also, and again, in antique bronze or in galvanized permanent finish aluminum. We will be using the toggle clasps that came in the bag. Either you will have a silver or a bronze, depending upon your colors, the color selection you have. That's what we'll be using as far as beads are concerned. I'm going to be using a size 11 color eyes bead. You can also use a size 12 beading needle. It does not matter. I'm going to be using Smoke Fireline for both. Even though these beads are a little lighter, the Smoke Fireline works a little bit better because this can be a thready looking stitch. So this just camouflages a little bit better. I'm using it in 6 pound. You do not want to go any higher than 6 pound because the diameter of this thread needs to be very fine so that you can sew through these beads multiple times. You will put onto your beading needle about 4.5 to 5 feet to start. We will need to extend our Fireline during this process. If you do not know how to do that, there will be a link for a video that will show you how to do that in the description box beneath the video player. So let's get started. Okay, so once you have threaded your needle, you're going to pick up 2 8/0 seed beads and 2 11/0 seed beads onto your needle. Just like this. We are then going to draw these down to the end of the thread. Holding onto your beads, come back through the tail side, up through the 2 8/0 seed beads, just like this. And then pull your tail and pull your working thread until the 11/0s lay on top of the 8/0 seed beads in a ladder stitch like this. Now we are coming out of the 8/0s where the tail is. We're going to come down into the 2 11/0 seed beads and pull our thread through. Then we're going to go into the 8/0s right above them on the tail side here and come back through. Now you should have something that looks like this. And let me just readjust a little bit here. Now that you're coming out of these 2 8/0 seed beads, we're going to put our clasping on, so that will be done and we won't have to come back to do it. So we're going to pick up an 11/0 and then we're going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead. We're going to drop those down to the piece we've started, and then we're going to pick up the loop of the toggle clasp and go through the loop. So the circular portion, I mean, of the toggle clasp, and then we're going to go through the loop. Then we're going to go through the 8/0 seed bead right underneath it, and just the 8/0. Ignore that 11/0. Hold on to that 8/0 and just pull your thread through until the clasp draws down on top of that 8/0 seed bead. Then pick up an 11/0 seed bead and go into the opposite side of the 8/0s. Now don't go down into these 11/0s. Go to the opposite side of the 2 11/0s that you started in, like this. And I'm going to pull this through. And now I have my clasping attached to the 8/0 seed beads. I'm going to sew through it about 3 times, just to make sure it's nice and secure. So coming out of the 8/0s here, I'll go up into the 11/0 on that side, and then up into the 8/0 and into the clasp, and pull my thread through. Then I'll come back down into the 8/0 and into the 11/0 here, and pull my thread through. Then I'm going to go back into the 2 8/0s. Ignore your tail thread, just try to keep it out of the way so it doesn't tangle up. And that is how you will secure your clasping. Sew through that 2 to 3 more times and we'll be back. Okay, so I have secured my clasping now, and you can see my tail is on this side, my working thread is on this side. Coming out of the 2 8/0 seed beads, we have attached our clasping to. Now, I'm just going to move this tail aside, and I'm going to come from these 2 8/0s into the 2 11/0s that I attached previously. Then I'm going to pick up 2 more 11/0s, and I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 11/0s that I'm coming out of. Now that those are attached, I have to sew back through them to make sure that they're nice and tight. So go back into the 2 you just added, and then go back into the previous two. Now, of course, we've got to go back into the newest two so that we can add our next beads. Sew up through them, and then pick up 2 Toho Seed beads. Just like this. And let me back up just slightly here. Now we're going to go into the opposite side of the beads that we're coming out of. So we're going to go into these 2 11-ohs right here. And then we're going to sew back through the 2 we just added. So we're coming out of the 11-ohs, go back into those 2 8-ohs, pull it down, and then go back into the 2 11-ohs that we're attaching to. Now, to get in position for our next stitch, we go back into the 2 new 8-ohs. And this is what our base stitch will look like. And we will embellish the top of that. But before we put our embellishment on, we want to establish our extension for our next link, our next base link. So we're going to pick up an 11-oh, 2 8-ohs, and an 11-oh seed bead, just like this. We're going to go into the opposite side of the 2 8-ohs we're coming out of and pull this down, just like that. And then we're going to sew back through them. I'm going to sew through the 11-oh here on the side, the 2 8-ohs on the top, the 11-oh on this side here, and then I will sew into the 2 8-oh seed beads I'm attaching to, just like that. Now I want to cut down my tail thread a little bit. It should be secure enough. I'm going to cut it down at least some so it's not in my way. Now, these little beads over here are going to look weird. That's okay. We're going to be working on our main base here. And I was thinking you could probably use a 4mm round or a 5mm round, maybe even a 6mm round bead, but a 4mm round would work really well for this. A 4.5, anything like that would work just as well as a cube. Now we're going to put our cube on. So we're coming out of these 2 8-oh seed beads. We're going to pick up a 15-oh and a cube, and then a 15-oh. We're coming out of the 2 8-ohs on this side. We're going to go through the 2 8-ohs on the opposite side of the unit that you have built, and on the same side you're coming out of. So we're going to go straight across and bring this cube down. And then you're going to pick up a 15-oh seed bead, and you're going to go through the cube. So it's kind of hard to make the cube stay on top at this point. Just get a hold of it the best you can, go through the top of the cube, and then as you pull this down, you will be able to balance that cube on top of your little link here. Then pick up another 15-oh and go into the opposite side of the 2 8-ohs we started in. So we are going to go right into these 2 here. Pull this down. Make sure your 15-ohs go on top and they're not falling down to the sides. And this is what your embellishment's going to look like. However, we need to sew back through that to make sure that it stays nice and secure and that it has 2 passes of thread, since it is crystal and crystal can be sharp. So we're coming out of the 2 8-ohs here. We're going to go right into the 15-oh right next to where we're coming out of, and we're going to go up into the crystal cube. Then we're going to go into the 15-oh on top there. Make sure that you're passing through the beads the same way you originally did, the same path. So now we've come through these 2, which means don't go around the top of the bead, you'll have it all strange. You want to go through the side that you went through originally. Then go into the 2 8-oh seed beads right behind those beads. Pull through. Tighten everything, and then go into the 15-oh and cube again on this side. Turn your unit and go into the 15-oh on the bottom here. and then back into the 2 8/0s we're anchoring to. And then I'm just going to straighten out this bottom unit a little bit, and that is what our embellishment of crystal will look like. Now we need to move down to do our next unit. So we're going to go through this 11/0 seed bead. We're coming out of the 8/0s. We're going to go down into this 11/0. Then we're going to go into these 2 8/0s right here. You're going to pick up 2 11/0 seed beads, and you're going to go into the opposite side from which you're coming out of. Just like this. Bring this down, pull the thread through, and those 2 11/0s lay right on top. Now we have to secure it, so we go back into the 2 11/0s, and then back into the 2 8/0s. Now we have to get in position for our next stitch, so go back into the 2 that you've just added. Pick up 2 more 11/0 seed beads. Go into the opposite side of the 2 you're coming out of, and pull it down. Then go into the 2 new that you've just added. Pull your thread through. And then go into the 2 previous, and back into the 2 you just added. Now we're going to pick up 2 8/0 seed beads, and we're going to go into the opposite side of the 2 11/0s we just added, and pull these 2 new ones down. Just like this. Go into the 2 new ones to reinforce it. I'm holding on to them between my thumb and my finger so that each time I pull my thread through, I can tug on it and make this nice and tight. You do not want any slack in this. It needs to stay nice and neat. Now we're going to go into the 2 11/0s we attached to, and back into the 2 8/0s we just added. This is our base unit for our crystal. You can kind of just straighten it all out so you can see exactly what you've got. And then you're going to pick up, we're going to make our extension now between units. So we're going to pick up an 11/0, 2 8/0s, and an 11/0. And then we're going to go into the opposite side of the 2 beads we just put on. So the 2 8/0 seed beads, we're going to attach this little link to it. Then we're going to sew back through it. I like to sew through the 11/0s on the side by themselves so that it kind of begins to make the shape I want. Then I'm going to go through the 2 8/0 seed beads on the bottom, the 11/0 on the side, and then back into the 2 8/0s we are attaching to. From here, we are ready to put the crystal on. So we pick up a 15/0 seed bead and a crystal and a 15/0. Go into the 2 8/0s on the same side, but on the opposite side of the unit, just like this. So straight across. Push that up if you can, and then just turn your unit so you can get to it better. Pick up a 15/0 and go back into the crystal cube. I'm going to put my thumb over the cube and pull that bead through. Now pick up another 15/0 and go into the opposite side of the beads we started in, right here. Pull this down. Make sure that everything is attached. Nice and neat, your 15/0s are laying in the proper position, and now we're going to sew back through to reinforce our crystal. So we're going to go through the 15, we're coming out this side, so we're going to go into the 15/0 right above where we're coming out, and then into the crystal. Just like this. Then we're going to go into the 15/0. Then into the 2 8/0s right above that 15/0. We're just tracing our steps again, just doing exactly what we did before. Now we're coming out of this side of the 2 8/0s. I'm going to get a little bit closer if I can. And we're going to go into the 15-0 and into the crystal, just like this. Hold on to the crystal, pull that through, and then go into the 15-0 on the bottom. And then, once you have done that, you're going to go back into the 2/8 you're attaching to, or you've attached the entire embellishment to, just like this. That's what that looks like. Let's do one more unit, then it will be completely repetitious and we will go to length off camera. So now that we are done with that unit, we're coming out of these 2/8. We're going to sew down into the 11-0 on that side and then into the 2/8. Pick up 2 11-0 seed beads. Go through the opposite side of the 2/8 you're coming out of. Then reinforce it by sewing back through both sets. So we're going to sew through the set we just put on, the set we're attaching to, and then back into the set we just put on. Then we're going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads and go into the opposite side of the 2 we just attached. And then reinforce it by sewing through the new set and then through the previous set and then back through the new set. Pick up 2 8-0 seed beads and go into the opposite side of the beads you're coming out of. Then go back into the 2 8-0s you just added. Then reinforce by sewing in the previous and then back into the 2 you just added. Just like that. Now we've got our next base for our crystals, and I want you to see how pretty that lays. The way it narrows down for the bead, it's just very pretty. Then we are going to make our extension so it will be prepared for our next unit. Pick up an 11-0, 2 8-0s, and an 11-0. Go back into the 2 beads you're coming out of. Go through the 11-0, the 2 8-0s, the 11-0 on this side, and then into the 2 8-0s you're attaching to. Now we pick up a 15-0 seed bead and a crystal and a 15-0. We go straight across into the opposite set of 8-0s. Pull this down. I'm going to turn my unit a little bit, push that bead on top if I can. Pick up another 15-0. Go through the crystal and pull it together like this. Then pick up another 15-0. Go through the 2 8-0s on the bottom and pull it through. Straighten up your unit and then sew back through the entire unit. So we're going to go, or through the embellishment, excuse me, we're going to go through the 15-0, the crystal, and then the 15-0 here, through the 2 8-0s, straighten it up, go through the 15-0 on this side, and the crystal, go through the 15-0 on the bottom, and then through the 2 8-0s we are attaching to, just like that. Now you can just kind of pull the next unit, get it straightened up, sew down into the next set of 8-0s. So you're going to go through this 11-0, sew down into these 2 8-0s here, and you're ready to do your next unit. Now don't worry too much if these get all crumpled up, because as you make your units, they straighten up. And then after you make your units, you can kind of pull on it gently and you can see how it's forming into, you can see your little opening for your extensions there. So that provides movement for your units. And it's also kind of pretty. A little bit of light can shine through for the crystals. So we're going to continue doing these units until you have 14 fully embellished units, and then the 15th you will just make the base, but you will not embellish it with crystals and you will not put an extension on it. So let me show you what I've got. So I've just made the base, but I have not gone through my 8/0s and made the 11/0, 2/8/0, 11/0 extension. We're not going to need that on the last one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up through these 2/8/0 seed beads here, and I will be ready to put on my clasping. I've got way too much thread. Okay, so now I'm coming out of these 2/8/0s. Now, this length is going to make a 7-inch bracelet, measuring halfway through the toggle to the very end. Once it's finished with this end on, it's going to be 7 inches. So if you need a longer or a shorter bracelet, you can adjust the amount of units you make accordingly. Just make sure the very last unit you're making, you do not make the next extension on between the 2 units. Just make your unit like this, and then we are going to put on our clasping, then we will put on our crystal. So I'm coming out of the 2/8/0s. I'm going to pick up an 11/0 and an 8/0, actually 2/8/0s, because I want this to narrow down quite a bit for the use of my toggle. So I'm picking up an 11/0 and 2/8/0 seed beads, and I'm going to drop this down to the base unit that I've created. Then I'm going to pick up the end of my clasping and go through the loop. Bring this down to my unit. Doesn't have to be right on top, just somewhere close. Then you're going to go through the 2/8/0 seed beads, and only the 2/8/0s, ignoring the 11/0. Hold on to those 2/8/0s and pull your clasping down, just like that. Then pick up an 11/0 seed bead, just like this, and go into the opposite side of the 2/8/0s you're attaching to, and pull this down. Now we're going to sew through this a couple of times, and then we'll put our crystals on, or our last crystal on. So I'm coming out of these 2/8/0s. I'm going to go up into the 11/0 on this side, both of the 8/0s, and then into the clasp. Now we're going to go back down into the 2/8/0s, the 11/0 on one side, and then the 2/8/0s I'm attaching to. Let's do that again. And you can do this as many times as makes you feel comfortable with the security of the clasp. Of course, you don't want to get too much thread in your beads, but generally 3 passes through is going to be more than enough. But I'm going to go one more time just because I just feel better that way. So I'm going to go up through one more time, and I'm going through my loop at the same time. So I'm just going to come back down into the 8/0s, into the 11/0. See, on this pass it's getting a little bit tighter, so straighten myself back out here. Go into this 11/0. And then into the 2/8/0s. So all I did was just sew through until I felt secure with it. Okay. Now I'm coming out of these 2 8/0s and they're buckling a little bit, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe I just pulled it too tight when I was putting on my clasping. But we're coming out of these 2 8/0 seed beads. We're going to pick up a 15/0 and a crystal and a 15/0. We are going to go directly across into the opposite ones, just as we've been doing all along. Right here. Pull this down. Then reposition here, push my little crystals so I can get to it, and pick up a 15/0, go back into that crystal, pick up a 15/0, and go into the 2 8/0s I'm attaching to, or that we started in. Okay, now at this point I have to adjust everything, make it look good, and then sew back through the crystal. So I'm going to go into the 15/0 and the crystal, into the bottom 15/0 here. And I know this reinforcing thing people get a little irritated with, but believe me, if you want your bracelet to last, you need to do this step. And straighten it out. Then I will sew back through this side 15/0 and crystal into this 15/0 and into these 8/0s. Okay, so now we are going to do an embellishment. So what you want to do is you want to get your 15/0 seed beads, and you're going to start from the 2 8/0s that you are in. So this first embellishment will be a little shorter, and then the next will be 1 bead longer. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up 7 of our beads. 1, 2, 3 of our 15/0s. I've got 7 on here. Let me get you in close again. I'm going to go out of these 2 8/0s that I just attached my clasping to, down into this 11/0 that sticks out on our extension right here. Now, this is subject to adjustment as far as how many beads you're going to put in. You want them to lay nice and neat like this. If you're using different beads than I am, your components could be a little bit further apart or a little closer together. So what you have to do is you have to adjust the amount of 15/0s that will work for what you're doing. If you're using a round bead or if you're using something a little different, you may have to adjust them. This first one, 7 15/0s, and then the second one I will put in 8. And that's what's working for my beads and for what I'm doing. And it should work well for you if you're using the same things I am. So we are picking up 8 this time. I have 5, 6, 7, 8, I think. Let me see. Yep. So I've got my 8 15/0s. I'm going to go from this little 11/0 in my extension into the next 11/0 in the next extension and pull these down. Again, you don't want them to pull tight and bunch anything. You want them to fit perfectly across, nice and neat like this. And you're just going to continue the entire length of the bracelet, putting 8 15/0 seed beads from 11/0 to 11/0 in the extensions until you get to the bottom. Then you're going to go from this 11/0 with 7 or 1 less of what you're using into the 2 8/0s and travel through the other side of the bracelet. So let's do one more embellishment here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I will go into the next 11/0. Pull these down. And I will just continue all the way down the side of my bracelet until I get to this end, and we'll be back. Okay, so now I have done my embellishment all the way up the side. Let's get you in closer here. And I'm at the very end, the very last one. I've picked up 7, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, I picked up my 7 beads. So just one less than whatever you're using for the length. And then we are going to go into these 2 8/0s that the clasping is attached to. So we can move to the other side of the bracelet. Now, I can just turn my bracelet around and begin again. I'll put on 7 and then I'll switch to the 8. Now if you find one, because sometimes they're a little inconsistent in size, and if you find one that's kind of buckling out or doing something silly, you can add or reduce a bead on the individual strands if you need to. So if one's buckling, take a bead out. Maybe 8 is too many. If you're seeing any thread or it's not holding its shape perfectly within there, then add one. So you can adjust these so that they lay nice and pretty. So this time I'm coming through those 2 beads. I am going to pick up my 7 beads. Come here. Oh, goodness. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'm just going to go from the beads that I'm coming out of under the clasping into the next bead sticking out in the extension between units, and just straighten it up, and then move into your 8 beads and do the entire length. And when we get to the very end, we'll put our last embellishment in and tie off. So just slide from bead to bead like I showed you previously with 8 15-0 seed beads, or however many you have established works for you, and we'll be back. Okay, so now I have finished my embellishment all the way to the side except for the last one. I've picked up 7 beads this time instead of 8. And I'm coming out of the 11-0 in the extension here. I'm going to go into the 2 8/0s where we attached the clasping. And I'm going to pull this last embellishment down. And that's okay. Then I'm going to turn my bracelet over. I'm coming out of these 2 8/0s right here. I'm going to go down into the 2 11/0s right underneath them. And pull everything nice and tight. And then there's a little thread bridge between these 2 units. Right on the top of them, you'll go underneath that thread bridge. Let me get you really close so you can see what I'm doing. Too close. There we go. Well, let's see. There we go. So right underneath that little thread bridge, in between the ladder stitch there. Then you're going to form a loop, go through the loop with your needle, and pull a knot down. Then you can go into the next set of ladder stitch right here. And then we're going to go on the thread bridge between these 2, right underneath it, make a loop, go through the loop, and pull a knot down. Then go into the next set of ladder stitch here. And I think we'll just go through this extension bead, down into the ladder stitch here, and we'll tie one more knot between these units right here. So I'll go under this thread bridge between the 8/0s and the 11/0s and make another knot, and then slide down into the next ladder stitch, and I will cut my thread off. Leaving a little bit so that I can just get some heat close. I'm just going to get a lighter close and just burn that in like that. Now, let me back off, and you can see my beautiful bracelet. And I'll put it on to make sure it fits, and I'll show you what it looks like. And this is what it looks like. And I'll put the other one on too. Let me get all these beads out of my way. And here is the one I did with the warm bag. Let's scoot back a little here. Let me put this on and I'll show you. I can't put it on that far away. It's just too far away. Okay, there we have it. They're very, very pretty. And like I said, try different beads with this too. I think because of the shape of this cube, it's kind of a round shape. I think that a round bead would probably, like a round crystal or even a glass pearl, something like that would work really nice too. You could try a 5mm bicone. That might work nice. Something like that. But it's a pretty basic stitch, and it should be pretty accommodating just by adjusting the seed beads, the amount of seed beads that you use either in your embellishment, or maybe use an 11-0 instead of a 15-0 to attach your bead to the base unit, something like that. But you don't want your base units to curl up. So you want to make sure that whatever you use covers the base unit without pulling it when you attach it. So that's what that looks like. I think they turned out really pretty, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And if you did, please consider subscribing, maybe liking this video, and leaving a comment. That would all be good. That all helps my channel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.